right, everyone, welcome to the December Cereus Happy Hour. And this month, I'm going to be talking about goal setting. For those of you who aren't familiar with me, I'm Dr. Daniel Shin. I'm a urologic surgeon and investor, and earlier this year founded Cereus Real Estate, really with the hope of bringing passive investing opportunities to high-income professionals and physicians, with the goal of bringing you closer to financial freedom. A few months ago, I started this monthly happy hour series as an opportunity both for education and also community. And we've had a couple of great sessions so far where we've talked about things varied from cap rates and also the difference between investing versus stocks and many of other topics. And today, since 2025 is fast approaching, I wanted to go ahead and talk about goal setting because I feel that it's such an important part, really progress in life. So last month in November, I went over a little bit more of my own story and talked about how, essentially I went through the medical training process, got spit out the other end as an attending surgeon, and then within a couple years of that, realized that perhaps it would be a good idea to start diversifying, both to give myself choices in the future and also, as I'll get into a little bit later on, to really provide that financial stability and freedom that I wanted both for myself and for my family. So a lot of that progress, especially over the last 5 to 10 years, has been related to these somewhat ostentatious goals that I've set for myself. And I wanted to go into that because I really think it is a superpower that is underutilized by most people. So, just speaking personally to start, I really have goals in all aspects of my life. So, for example, in medicine for 2024 this year, one of my goals was that I wanted to successfully sequester the medicine practice of my year to just about a week a month. And I was able to do that as a locum tenens this year. I would travel away from Memphis to Ohio for 1 week a month, and that's how I would practice medicine, which was very satisfying and also a good source of income as well. But in the rest of the month, it allowed me to really progress in all of these other aspects, like working on, and launching this Cereus Real Estate, and also cleaning up my real estate portfolio and, making a lot of progress. So that was medicine. Physical goals are really important. I had a scan recently that showed that my liver is closer to foie gras than a normal liver. So I'm trying to lose some weight to combat fatty liver disease. I don't want to end up with cirrhosis, right? So that is a personal physical goal that I have, for example. I have relationship goals, with my wife. We try to do a date night. We try to connect because I truly believe that your relationship with your spouse is one of your best investments. It could certainly be the best investment in your life with, never-ending compounding returns. Or if it goes wrong, it could be a really big detriment to your finances and to your happiness, right? So relationship goals are really important. On the business side, on my end, as I said, I wanted to launch Cereus Real Estate and also have a successful raise. And Cereus Real Estate now, we're heading up towards 450 investors on the investor list. So far, we've raised together as a community, we've put in about $1.2 to $1.3 million into an apartment deal, the Hampton Meadows, which just now is probably down to 2 spots remaining for investors to close out the year. So from the business standpoint, I've been very gratified with those goals. I wanted to talk about the importance of goals a little bit, and then I'm actually going to go through sort of my framework of goal setting. And I'm hoping that this can be applicable to your goals, both professionally, personally, and otherwise. So I'll talk a little bit about it from just a general standpoint, and then I'll go into sort of the nitty-gritty. And this will be recorded, so you don't have to remember everything. You can kind of come back to it later on. And really, I'm not taking credit from this. I think it's really important to build on the success of others. So these are pretty commonly held beliefs about goal setting. I'm not making anything or making anything up from scratch here, but I do believe that not everyone knows about it. So I'm hopeful that this will be helpful to you. So the interesting thing about goal setting when it comes to medical professionals and physicians in particular is that I think you actually really don't need many goals as someone going into medicine. What do I mean by that? That sounds kind of ridiculous, right? But goal setting as, say, a college student who's going to become a pre-med to go into medicine, you don't have to set goals because you have an obvious goal, which is to get into medical school. Once you get into medical school, your obvious goal is to do well and get into residency. And then once you're a resident, your obvious goal is that you go ahead and get through residency no matter what and become an attending physician, right? So what I'm saying is that I think it's a very passive process in the medical training where you don't have to physically sit down and think about these goals because they're self-evident. So I actually don't think most medical professionals, despite being very driven people, are very good at goal setting, off the bat. So just like anything else, you have to set goals and practice setting goals to become better at it. So the reason why I think it's important is that really goal setting is a superpower. And there have been studies on this, but basically people who set goals are over 40% more likely to achieve success. So there are many medications out there that improve things by 40%, and they're called wonder drugs. So if you have a single intervention in your life that you can institute to really ramp up your possibilities of success and your horizon, I think goal setting is a really good place to start. So the first thing that I think is really important when you are thinking about what kind of goals do I want to set? How do I even get started with this? The first thing to do is to visualize where you want to be in the future. This is how I really started to get into goal setting. And it came out of a somewhat uncomfortable situation where when I was practicing full-time with Kaiser in Southern California, I lived in Los Angeles, but I had to drive over an hour every day to get to work. So I drove an hour to get to work, and then I drove an hour to get home. So long story short, I spent over 10 hours a week in the car, and I had a lot of time to kill. So this went on for years, and then after about 2 years of this, I started to think about the fact that I probably wanted to make some changes to ensure that I wouldn't have to do a 10-hour commute forever, and if I wanted to, that I could make medicine optional. So the thing that I did, just to give you an option, is that I started using my commute as sort of goal-setting sanctuary. So what I would do, I'll give you sort of a visual. I would be driving, and luckily, it was highway driving. It didn't really take too much mental power, and I would put on some pretty calm music. So I put on some classical music, or I think specifically I put on Chopin just because it's my favorite. And I would think about the ideal day 5, 10, 15 years in the future. And by putting it out a little bit further into the future, it became something where I could really craft in my mind the perfect day that was a little bit divorced from what I was going through on a day-to-day right now. So in that idealized version, I would get up nice and early, I would have a morning routine, I would have a workout, I would be able to spend about half of the day working towards a task that really brought me a lot of satisfaction and joy. And then in the afternoon, I would have time to see friends, time to see family, dinner with the family. That was sort of my idealized day. And what I was able to do after kind of getting that vision is that it started to guide all of the goals that I would need to achieve that vision. So, when it comes to you and thinking about where you want to be in the future, you don't have to do it on your commute like I did. I think there are a lot of options, but I do think you need to have a little bit of mental space for yourself and bring you out of the grind, the day-to-day grind, to give yourself a little bit of space to have that time to dream and visualize what that is going to be. So for you, that could be on a walk, instead of active listening to a podcast, instead of listening to something very frenetic in terms of music, put on something calming and let your mind wander and put yourself in that framework of the future. Maybe it's when you're sitting on a bench, when maybe you're meditating after a yoga session. Another option that I think is a really good option is on a date night with your significant other after a bottle of wine. Not that I'm saying you need to have wine, but a lot of times getting yourself in that really positive framework, that mindset, gives yourself the license to really visualize that future. So there's a lot of options, long story short. So, after you have that vision of what you see and what you ideally would like your life to be in the future, and I think 15 years is a really good time frame to consider because it's just long enough where you can really have it be, you could achieve a lot of things over 15 years and your life could look very different. So 10, 15 years, that's a really good framework when you're trying to do this yourself. After you have that vision of what you would like things to be in that time frame, it's time to define your why, W-H-Y. What is your why? And the reason why you need this is because when you have goals, and I would encourage you to have strong, very almost audacious goals, there are going to be a lot of impediments and obstacles in your way. There's a reason why most people live paycheck to paycheck. There's a reason why most people are dependent on their job and work past retirement. It's because they are not achieving those big goals. So when you are running into obstacles on your way to this vision for yourself, you need something to sustain yourself and give yourself the energy to overcome those obstacles. And for me, and for you as well, I think that can be your why. So what is your why? Basically, you have to think, what will achieving these goals mean to you? Why do you want to achieve these goals? What is sort of the binding concept, the motivation behind your desire to get to those goals? And it sounds like a simple question, but it's really not. And if you're thinking about how do I figure this out? What is my why? I have no idea. There's a way to do it. So let's again use myself as an example. When I was figuring out one of my goals, back then, I was basically thinking that, okay, so I need a pretty audacious goal for myself. And one of my goals was financial freedom because a lot of my vision for the future was tied to the desire to be financially independent, because that really opens the door to crafting your life the way that you want it to be. But then that's not enough by itself. So I had this very specific goal at the time where I wanted to have a net worth of investable assets of about $6.5 million. It was specific. On my blog, I kind of break it down and I go into why I came up with that number. But basically, it was $6.5 million, somewhere around there. So I started asking myself, okay, this is a number that I want. Why? Because it's going to provide me enough passive income. Why? Why does that matter? Because I can use that income to pay for my expenses and only work if I want to. Why does that matter? Well, it's so I can be present for my kids and my wife and also give them financial stability. All right, so why does that matter? And the more times you ask this question, the more it kind of peels back the onion to sort of your driving force and the reason behind the unconscious reasons behind your desire to get there. So the reason at the bottom of all of this for me, I came to realize that when I was young, my dad wasn't around a ton. And in an ideal world, I want to change that for my children. And also, we really struggled with finances. And that lack of financial stability as a child was really unpleasant. So these are sort of the core reasons why I wanted to get that financial stability and financial freedom. And that's only one part of the vision. So you can imagine doing this for all of your different types of goals to really figure out what is the driving force that is going to sustain you through the hard times to get to that goal, okay? So that is the why. And just remember, goals without purpose leads to burnout. So by defining your why, you figure out the purpose that will sustain you and get you through those hard times and prevent burnout. Okay, so to sum it up for me, I think my why is, I sum it up now as sort of this alliterative mantra, which is family, friends, and freedom. I want to be there for my family. I want to provide for my family. I want to be able to see my loved ones and my friends when I want to in the future. And I want to have the freedom to do that, both sort of time freedom and also just freedom in the day-to-day. So that's sort of how I kind of sum it up for myself when I think about it. All right, so in the framework of goal setting now, we've thought about how how to define your goals by visualizing the future. We've also talked about defining your why by really thinking about and peeling back those onion layers to get to the heart of your motivation. Now, in terms of the specific goals, there's a framework for talking about goals in a very constructive way that is going to help you to actually get there. And some people debate this, but I really do in general like this framework, but they're called SMART goals. So it's an acronym, and basically SMART stands for goals that are specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound. So what does that mean? So basically, you don't want to set a goal that is not specific. So let me give you an example. A non-specific goal is just saying, I want to be financially free in 15 years. Because that is really non-specific, and in order for you to get where you want to go, you need to have much more specificity than that. You need to know, okay, what is the target net worth? And then maybe beyond the net worth, what is my actual passive income that is going to allow me to be financially free? And then beyond that, what of the passive income is coming in through my real estate investments? What is the amount of passive income coming in through maybe a business that I started? How much of it is still coming in from my medical practice when I'm 15 years from now? So having these very specific targets helps you to figure out how to get there. So specific, measurable. You need to have some way of measuring your progress. So again, if your goal in 15 years is very general, like, I want to be happy in 15 years. Unfortunately, that's very difficult to measure. So I would encourage you, certainly that should be an overarching goal, but in terms of this exercise, let's keep things a little bit more measurable. So monetary goals are very, very easy to measure, and that helps you track your progress, okay? Achievable is the A in SMART goals. And honestly, I have a little bit of trouble with this word because I think that it's really important to have very big goals. And achievable to some might mean something that is really not that ambitious. So when I think about an achievable goal in terms of physical fitness, let's say, okay, by next year, I'd like to be able to run a mile in 8 minutes. Okay, that's pretty good, right? But I think in terms of a goal where you would like to really go, I would encourage you to put that goal into something that is maybe just beyond your comfort zone, right? So instead of 8 minutes, let's set that goal at 6 minutes. Let's really stretch and try to live the fullest in this opportunity of life that we have, right? So A is achievable, but I would encourage you to really stretch to that achievable goal. Stretch your comfort zones, okay? R in SMART is relevant. And I think this goes without saying that if you've gotten this far in this framework, it is going to be a relevant goal, right? It's going to be tied to your ideal vision of the future. It's going to be tied to your why. So I think that goes without saying that it's going to be relevant, but don't waste your goal setting on in 15 years, I'd like to be able to, eat 10 bags of popcorn at once. Let's make it relevant. Let's make it important to your future, okay? And then finally, time-bound. So this is very important, but I think that when you're thinking about goal setting, you do want to have a timetable. You don't want to have a goal that is saying that at some point in time, I would like to have $10 million. At some point in the future, I would like the ability to do 50 push-ups. Having that time really helps define and figure out how you're going to get there. Because the next step in all of this is really working backwards from this future vision, because there's going to be a lot of steps between where you are now and where you would like to be in 10 or 15 years. And it might be one step, it might be two. It's more likely, to be quite honest, it's going to be thousands of steps. So when you have that time goal and when you have that specific target, you can start to roughly chop up the time you have between now and then start working backwards to how you're going to get there. So you, on this journey, you're going to have to take the time that you've mapped out, that you're going to be moving forward towards those goals, and then you need to be able to regularly review your progress. And the thing that I have learned about this process, having been a pretty aggressive goal setter over the last 5 to 10 years, is that you have to be a little bit flexible here. So, what do I mean by that? I wish that it was a linear equation, as in put X number of days working towards your goal and you're guaranteed to make Y amount of progress, right? But it's not. What I found is that it's not a linear journey. I found that goals and working towards goals is much more like a sinusoidal curve, where you might have some times when you're really heading up that slope and making rapid progress, but you might at sometimes be plateauing on the top of that curve. And then certainly there are times where you feel like you're just really losing progress. Maybe an opportunity or business venture blows up, and then you find yourself worse off than when you started. At least it seems that way. I would argue that you're not worse off. But there will be peaks, there will be plateaus and valleys in this journey, but the overall trajectory over time, if you step back and look at it, will be upwards. Another really important point on this journey that has really hit home for me this year is the concept of progress over perfection. So especially physicians struggle with this one. And I think it is because in medical training, physicians are taught to strive for perfection. And, this is something that tends to bleed over from your professional life into your personal life. But the fact is, when you have lives on the line, it's not good enough to say, oh, well, I tried hard and, I did my best, right? Because if in some things you are not trying to achieve perfection, you may harm people, right? So I think this actually turns a lot of medical professionals into people who have really a lot of trouble progressing, because they feel like they can only progress if they're doing a perfect job. And in reality, what happens is that a lot of people who are suffering from this problem, they won't take that first step. They won't, or maybe they'll take one step and stop because they're worried that their next step is not going to be good enough. They're worried that if it's only 80% as good, then it's better to not do anything at all. And what this can lead to is a lot of paralysis. So doctors, I would say, are some of the worst people in terms of analysis paralysis before making an investment, before making a decision, because they're not sure if they're going to execute it, 100%, A+ effort, right? But what I found is that progress, steady progress, even at 80% or 85%, it's so much more important than just making sure that everything is perfect, because progress, consistent progress to the best of your ability, is better than 100% perfection. You're just going to get a lot farther with consistent progress, even if it is not perfection, okay? So I tell myself that a lot, and it's something that I talk about with my own coaches, because this is something I struggle with as well. Okay, so we've really gone through the framework here, and if you've gotten to this point, this will give you a lot of direction and fodder to start goal setting on your own. But I have a few extra tips, okay? So they have done also some more studies about goal setting. So there's a lot of work done on motivation, on progress and success, and the science of success. And they've also, so we said in the beginning that people who set goals are 40% more likely to succeed than those who don't, okay? Another statistic that is really interesting is that people who vividly describe or picture their goals are 1.2 to 1.4 times more likely to succeed than those who don't. So to translate that, beyond the initial benefit of just setting a goal, if you set a vivid goal and vividly describe it or picture it, you're gaining another 20 to 40% more likelihood of succeeding. So what does that mean? So I basically think that means you would like to engage as many of your senses as possible when you're setting your goals. So what does that look like in practice? So you want to engage your eyes. You want this to be visual. So write down your goals and read them on a regular basis. Doesn't have to be every day. That's ideal, right? But who has time for that? It's tough to get into that, but write it down somewhere. Keep it somewhere prominent. I have these little note cards that I keep on my desk by my computer, and they remind me of things that I want to remember, goals that I have, and on a regular basis, I'm seeing it in a visual manner. That makes it much more real. It reminds me, it activates my reticular activating system to move me towards that goal. Picture your goals. So every once in a while, just sit back, enjoy a few minutes, and just visualize that goal in as much detail as you can. What are you wearing on your financially free morning? Where are you walking? What does the sky look like on that day of freedom when you are completely financially free and able to do whatever you want that day? What does the air smell like? And what does the road under your toes feel like? What is the sand going to feel like when you're able to take that extra vacation because you both have the freedom and the financial means to do that? So really activating your senses is going to get you to that goal that much faster.